One of the most frustrating things about the Democratic Party for me, maybe the most frustrating thing about the Democratic Party, is this feedback loop that I've noticed between the party and progressives in this country, where a lot of progressives in this country don't support the Democratic Party because the Democratic Party isn't progressive enough. And the Democratic Party doesn't reach out and make more of an effort to attract votes from progressives because progressives don't support the Democratic Party. And it just goes over and over and over again in an endless cycle. And the result is that we wind up with, at best, a center-left Democratic Party, usually just a centrist Democratic Party, which is way better than the Republican Party by any stretch of the imagination, by any measure that you could possibly propose to compare the two parties. But the fact remains the Democrats are not nearly as progressive, are not nearly as left-leaning as we need them and want them to be to really move this country in the direction that it needs to go. And I would like to propose a two-pronged fix for this problem to break us out of that feedback loop. And one prong is aimed at the party, and one prong is aimed at the progressives in the population in the country, the voters or potential voters for the Democratic Party. So let me start with them, with the progressives in the country who either don't vote for Democrats or vote for Democrats while holding their nose and aren't enthusiastic about it. I just want to ask my fellow progressives, because I am a progressive, I am also a member of the Democratic Party, and all I want to propose to my fellow progressives in the United States who are frustrated with the Democrats and how centrist they are and how moderate they are and how the Democrats are the lesser of two evils and the party isn't doing what we really need it to do to combat the problems in this country and to push back the rising tide of fascism. All I want to ask my fellow progressives who are in that category that I just attempted to describe, I just want to ask you, for 2 days, every 2 years, that's the bare minimum of what I would like for you to contribute to this project. 2 days, every 2 years. The first day is whenever your state's Democratic primary election is. I want you to vote in that. And that may mean, depending on whether your state has an open primary or not, that may mean that you have to actually register as a member of the Democratic Party. So if you have to do that, I'm asking you to do that. You don't have to give them any money. They'll ask. If you register as a Democrat, they'll ask you for money. You don't have to give it to them if you don't want to. But register as a Democrat if necessary and vote in the primary election for your state. And then later in that year, in November, customarily, vote in the general election. That's 2 days. Every 2 years, because we have congressional elections every 2 years. We have senatorial elections on a cycle that there's usually one certain Senate seats are up every 2 years. A senatorial term is 6 years. So every election cycle or two, one of your U.S. senators is going to be up for re-election. And of course, the president is on the ballot to be elected every 4 years. So it's every 2 years is when we have a national general election in this country. 2 days every 2 years, primary election day and general election day. And you complain about the Democratic Party not leaning far enough left, the Democratic Party not being progressive enough. What do you think would happen if hundreds of thousands, hopefully millions of progressive American voters who don't usually vote, especially who don't usually vote in primary elections or off-year elections in the middle of a congressional or in the middle of a presidential term, what do you think would happen If all those progressives who usually don't participate or minimally participate in the American electoral system, if all of a sudden they registered as Democrats and they voted in primaries and they voted in general elections and they made their voice heard regularly and reliably in the Democratic Party, what do you think would happen to that party in that case? Do you think it might get more progressive? You think it might start drifting a little more to the left? You think its policies might be a little bolder, a little less centrist, a little less moderate? You think we might start finding ourselves in a position where one of our two major parties was at least making more of an energetic effort to do something, to change things around here for the better? If all of a sudden millions of progressives who weren't there before were voting reliably every 2 years? And think about this. What if a small percentage of those millions of progressives that are now taking part and giving their 2 days every 2 years and voting in primaries and general elections every 2 years, what if a small number of them decided to get even more involved than just voting 2 days every 2 years? What if some of them decided to give money? What if some of them decided to volunteer? What if some of them decided to become canvassers? What if some of them decided to become party delegates or become directly involved in the party at their local or state level in some other capacity? What if some of them decided to run for office and won and then became not just supporters of the party, not just voters of the party, not just people who were trying to influence the party through their participation in the process, but now they were leading the process. Now they're in the halls of Congress. Now they're in the United States Senate. Now they're in their state houses or their county governments. Now they're a county commissioner or a county executive, or they're on a school board. What do you think would happen if all the progressives who have sat home on election day for the last 50 years complaining about they don't want to pick the lesser of two evils, they don't want to hold their nose? Yes, if they had to choose, they would vote Democrat, but they're not going to vote Democrat because the Democratic Party is not progressive enough as it should be, is not progressive enough for them. What would happen if they started to participate, if you, as one of those people, started to participate, and through your participation joined, hopefully, theoretically, by millions of your fellow progressive Americans? What if you started to move that Democratic Party to the left? I feel like it would be inevitable. 2 days every 2 years. That's the bare minimum I'm asking for. If you want to do more than that, that's great. Some of us will have to do more than that eventually if we want to run more progressive candidates, if we want to support more progressive causes within the party and through the party. But bare minimum, the floor, 2 days every 2 years. Primary election, general election. Now, turning to the Democratic Party itself, what do we need from you all? What do we, the members of the Democratic Party, the registered Democratic voters, the potential progressive Democratic Party voters who could be voting for you, what do we need from you? What do you need to do to turn this around? What do you need to do to convince progressives who are a little iffy on the party or completely off the party and disgusted with the party? What do you need to do to fix that, to turn that around? Well, it's a little bit more complicated than what I just said to the voters, but it's not that complicated if you boil it down to its essence. What we need to do, what we need you to do, is to act like you have some guts, is to not just treat progressive voters and people who advocate more progressive policies with a little more respect and treat them more like a voting bloc that you care about and you're interested in and you want to vote for you. Like, yes, absolutely, you need to do that. But bottom line, the thing about Democratic politicians that bothers me the most isn't how centrist a lot of them are, isn't how moderate a lot of them are. It's how wishy-washy and mealy-mouthed a lot of you are. It's this sense that I get from Democratic politicians, certainly not all of you, but a lot of you, especially those of you who have become entrenched and I would say comfortable in the party establishment. What should we do? Well, what do you think we should do? I don't know about that. We could do that, but that might not be popular. What will the Republicans say if we do that? We can't do that because that'll piss off the Republicans. But if we do that, that's not going to play well with these people over here. And what about the people in the swing states? What about the people in the vulnerable districts? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? What should we do? What do you think we should do? Enough of that. Enough of that. Take a stand. Fight for your principles. Act like you have some principles. Progressives in this country, if you combine liberals and progressives and sort of progressive or left-leaning centrists in this country, if you combine that all into one sort of amalgam, that's the majority of this country. And those are all voters who are naturally ideologically inclined to vote Democrat rather than Republican. So give them something to vote for. And if you have a policy, if there's a progressive policy, or even just a center-left policy that hasn't been implemented, that would be a huge improvement for life of people in this country, or would at least be better than what the Republicans are proposing. If you have something like that and you're afraid to run on it, you're afraid to propose it, you're afraid to get behind it too hard because, oh, gee, I don't know, people might not like that, or there's a lot of people that aren't comfortable with that. You need to sell us on this. You need to fight for your principles. You need to fight for the ideas that you think are the best ones and the policies that you think are the best ones to implement to improve life for people in this country. If it's not popular right now, you need to make an argument. I'm so frustrated by Democrats, by mainstream centrist Democrats who respond to proposals from the progressives in their party. Like the Green New Deal. Remember about 8 years ago when the Green New Deal first started to become a thing and started to gain momentum, and there were actually mainstream Democratic politicians that were talking about the Green New Deal and how this is something that not only should we do for our economy and for the welfare of our people, but for the planet, for the sustainability of our entire civilization. These are measures that we should pursue and that we should try to enact. And what happened? The centrists in the party were just like, people don't like it. People don't like it. I don't know. It's a little too extreme. People don't like it. Well, that's why you need to convince people. You need to fucking convince people that what you want to do is worth doing. And if what you want to do is really worth doing and the benefits of it are as obvious and as widespread as I think in the example of the Green New Deal, just to use that as an example, they are, then it's not that tough of a sell. There will always be people who won't want to do it. There will always be people who are afraid of it, who resist the change. But that's part of your job as a representative, as a leader, as a politician, to say, you know what? We've been going this direction, but I think it will be better if we go in that direction. And here's why. Can we just get a little bit of that? You know when would be a great time to start that? Right the fuck now. Because as I sit here recording this video, the Democratic Party is in the midst of, to date, a 2-week panic attack over whether the President of the United States should still run for re-election. What's going to happen? Is Joe Biden going to jump off the ticket? Is he going to resign? Is Kamala Harris going to take over? Is Pete Buttigieg going to take over? Is Gavin Newsom or somebody else going to step in? Or is it going to be Joe Biden? Is he fit to be a candidate? Is he still fit to be the president? What did that debate performance, that terrible debate performance, what did that mean? Did that scare off too many of the voters? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? You need to figure it the fuck out, and you need to do it. And you need to commit to it. And you need to make us believe it. That's what needs to happen. If Biden stays in, as he insists he will, and he's going to be the nominee, then that's the way it is. And you need to get completely behind it and commit to it and say, President Biden is our guy. He's been a terrific president. You should want him for 4 more years. You should want him to be reelected. You should prefer him over Trump vastly for all kinds of reasons. And here are the most important of those reasons. Or if it's a no-win situation with Biden, and Biden doesn't want to go, Biden's being stubborn, then you make a meeting with the guy in the Oval Office, all of the most powerful Democratic senators and members of Congress and donors and everybody. You go in the Oval Office with the old guy, you close the door and you say, Joe, we're not going out of here until you make the right decision for the country. You're going to step down, you're going to pass the baton to Kamala, and we're going to go in a different direction here. And you're going to do this for the good of the party and for the good of the country. Either way, just pick a direction. You've been dithering on this for 2 weeks. Well, is Biden going to stay in or is he going to drop out? What should he do? What do you think he should do? Well, I think he should do whatever he thinks is right. Well, what do you think he should do? Just pick something. The other side is not doing all of this hand-wringing and soul-searching. No, gee, what should we do? What should we do? What should we do? You should pick something, and you should commit to it, and you should sell it to the American people, because I don't know if you fucking noticed, but there's a lot on the line this time. I don't know if you've fucking noticed, but the things that the Republicans are just openly announcing that they want to do if they get back in the White House and if they take control of the Senate and they increase their majority in Congress, the kinds of things that they're just coming right out and saying they want to do are fucking terrifying. And the only thing that stands between that and freedom and democracy, or some semblance of those things that we currently have, is the Democratic motherfucking Party and their nominee for president and their candidates for Congress and the United States Senate, and on a lower but no less important level, the various offices that are up for grabs in state houses all across this country. The Democratic Party, for all of its flaws, for all of its imperfections, for all of its failures and shortcomings, that's the only wall between the deeply flawed democracy that we have right now and fascism, authoritarianism. So you all really need to win this fucking election. And it would be nice if you acted like you were trying to win. If you acted like you fucking deserve to win. Because you have the best candidates and the best ideas, and you're going to take this country in the right direction. My God, Republicans still won't shut up about the fact that they're the party of Abraham Lincoln. They haven't stood for what Abraham Lincoln stood for 100 years. But they'll still run out in front of everybody and say, we're the party of Lincoln, we're the party of Lincoln. Well, Democrats, you're the party of goddamn Franklin Delano Roosevelt. You're the party of John F. Kennedy. You're the party of Barack Obama, and you need to own that and be proud of that and walk around like you're fucking somebody, like you deserve to be treated like somebody, that you're not just going to walk around and tiptoe around on eggshells because you're afraid of pissing off Republicans or you're afraid of how the media is going to spin it. FDR, JFK, Obama, none of them a perfect president, but all of those presidents, all of them, those legendary Democratic presidents from the 20th and 21st centuries, FDR, JFK, LBJ, Obama, he doesn't get initials, like BHO, but nobody calls him that. They all moved this country in directions that it needed to go. They all accomplished things that made life better for people, sometimes just a little bit, sometimes incrementally, but they all moved things in the right direction. And that's a record and a tradition and a history that the Democratic Party can be proud of and should be reminding people of every chance they get. The Democratic Party, the party of the labor movement, the party of the minimum wage, the party of the 40-hour work week and the guaranteed vacation, the party of abortion rights, the party of civil rights. The party of civil rights, not just for black people that still need to be fought for and stood up for and have gains made, but also the party of civil rights for LGBTQ people. The party of civil rights for immigrants and refugees. The party that should be fighting to welcome refugees and immigrants to this country instead of kowtowing to conservative talking points and right-wing bullshit and saying, actually, we'll be tougher on the border than the Republicans will be. That's not the Democratic Party, or at least it goddamn well shouldn't be. It has been because they're too afraid to chart their own course, to say, actually, we're pro-immigration, we're pro-immigrant, and we're going to govern according to that. And here's why we're going to do it, and here's why you should want us to. Instead of just saying, well, gee, the people seem awfully anti-immigration right now, so we're just going to try to do that instead. Fuck that. Fuck that. Act like you deserve to be here. Act like you're the ones who want to be in charge. And when you're in charge, act like you're in fucking charge. Why am I some fucking dipshit on YouTube with a YouTube channel with not even that big of an audience? Why am I the one here trying to give the goddamn Democratic Party, one of the two major political parties in this country, why am I the one who feels like I need to give you guys a pep talk and remind you who you are? It shouldn't be me. It shouldn't be anybody in my position. You shouldn't need to be reminded of this. There's two options in this election, and one of them is you guys. So fight for it and act like you deserve it. And act like you're a good choice and remind us why we should vote for you. Not just because you're not the other guys, as much of a fucking nightmare as the other guys are. And I grant you, that's a really good point. And that is something you should definitely mention, but you need to give people something to vote for, not just vote against. So tell people all across this country, including disaffected progressives who have had enough of you and your moderate, dithering bullshit. Remind them why they should vote for you too. Give them something to vote for. And you progressives out there who are saying, well, I'm not going to support the Democrats because, they're not progressive enough. Give them a reason to be more progressive. Make them more progressive through your participation in the party. Drag them to the left where they belong. 2 days every 2 years. That's all you need to do, and that's all you need to convince them to do. What's so fucking hard about this?